Today, we discuss Miro. Today, I want to talk about the hellscape that is technical diagramming, right? Everybody's nodding their heads right now, And there is a potential solution that I want to share. There was one name that several people brought up. I did some digging, and it's kind of nuts how much this program Miro has for developers. I have to share this. It could potentially be a game changer for you. So my favorite part about Miro is that half the work is already done. Like right now, typically we spend hours starting diagrams from scratch, gathering information. You get buy-in from every team. That's a lot of work to do. But Miro has a full set of integrations with the tools you're probably already using. And they also offer open APIs and SDKs for custom solutions for all those niche diagramming use cases we have to do, right? So the end result is the same, but it doesn't take forever. It's a massive, massive time saver. I'm transforming basic flowcharts and network architectures, and it all lives in one place. So are you using Miro? Have you used it? I want to hear. That's Miro.com.
Welcome back to Split Decision. This week on episode 6, we'll be recapping UFC London, sliding into a preview of UFC 291, giving you our top 5 most badass people, and more. So without further ado, let's jump in.
Alright, so let's recap UFC London from this past weekend. It was an okay card. Wasn't the worst card I've ever seen. Wasn't the most exciting card. Had some very good moments in it. The crowd was kind of lackluster. It has a few people thinking they might have oversaturated the market. They're doing too many in London right now. Maybe need to kick back to one a year. But entertaining card. The main event, Tom Aspinall, Marcin Tybura. What a performance from Tom Aspinall. He's coming off that injury, and he looked great. He put on a show, put on a performance that honestly has him looking like maybe, not counting John Jones, but maybe the best heavyweight out there.
Yeah, I'd say I guess to put your words a little bit finer, he's the best contender out there, I'd say.
I mean, he looked so good. Being that big, he moved on his feet great. He was quick. He was obviously just another level than Tybura, who is an older guy. He's been around for a while, but I mean, it was obvious the difference between the two.
Yeah, that was one of the things I had to question on the kind of preview for the card, is wondering if Tybura could still go at 37 against, somebody Aspinall's age. And, I mean, while it didn't really play a factor at all, Aspinall just kind of slept him early on and, just...
One thing I love is the first strike that Aspinall threw was he threw a head kick from the leg that got hurt, kind of just to like set a tone, and he landed it.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm not worried about what you have.
I think that was more as much for him as it was for everybody else. Like, all right, we got this. And then after that, I mean, he just blitzed him. Nothing Tybura could do. Knocked him down on the feet. Couple shots ground and pound. Easy victory for Tom Aspinall.
Yeah, it was a very, very clean fight. I think he gets, one of his call-outs in the future. He wants to fight John Jones. John Jones actually responded,
John Jones got all weird and emotional about it.
Yeah, so that's his typical...
I think Aspinall responded with, John, chill out, mate.
Right. It's exciting. I like it. And moving on to Molly McCann versus Julija Stoliarenko.
The co-main event.
I think we had, the biggest upset of the night here. I'm a big fan of Molly McCann. I know you are as well. I mean, this just hurts.
Yeah, it was a big upset on the... according to Vegas and the odds and everything, but if you watched the fight and you knew nothing about either one of them, I don't think you would think of it as an upset. Stoliarenko, she was faster. She was better on the feet, honestly, than Molly, which was surprising. And then once she took her down, it was kind of over from there.
Yeah, there was one takedown, one submission attempt. We said last time that McCann got submitted and she would look to, kind of recover from that. She couldn't do it here. She did, since the loss, announce that she was going to be moving to the lower weight class, dropping down.
Should be good for her, but
she needs to work on wrestling, man. She has to be able...
Jiu-jitsu. She needs some submission defense.
Defense, if anything. If anything. She needs some defense. But look, we're not sleeping on Molly McCann. We're going to keep watching her. We're going to watch her grow.
Still one of my favorites.
Right.
All right, so the next fight on the card, maybe the fight of the night, maybe one of the most entertaining fights of the night. Nathaniel the Prospect Wood, Andre Touchy-Feely. It ended up going to a decision, and Wood won 2-1, but man, this was a war between the two guys. Each dropped each other. Each were hurt. It looked like each one of them had the finish at one point, just back and forth.
Yeah, dude, look, there was... Honestly, one of the things I think tilted it in Wood's favor was the takedown. You know, I know they dropped each other. That kind of evens out. You know, they both got hurt. They both got rocked. But the takedown for Wood, you know, to couple with the significant strikes and kind of doing more damage throughout.
I think the damage was probably pretty equal. It was just came down to... I mean, they each got a round for him. The second round, obviously, for Feely, because he had the big shot, dropped him, almost finished it. And the other 2 rounds, while they were close, I think you could not easily, but I think you would score them just as the judges did for Wood. I had it 29-28 Wood. All 3 judges also had it 29-28. It's rare that everybody kind of agrees with how the fight goes.
But especially in a card where, you know, previously there was a kind of questionable call.
Exactly. But a nice win for Wood. You know, he keeps moving on. So just overall, like I said, probably the fight of the night.
Yeah, that brings him to 20-5. You know, so with his next opportunity, it really goes to show what he's going to try to do. You know, he won another one by decision. He's got to start finishing some fights if he wants to contend, though. Next up, we had Paul Craig making his debut at middleweight, facing Andre Muniz. He pretty much did everything I wanted him to do here. He got another finish with his elbows. He didn't have the guy wrapped up with a dislocated arm, but...
Yeah, it was a nice way to... he was coming into this fight, 2 losses in a row, moved down a weight class, so it was definitely a nice showing from Paul Craig. Got the TKO ground and pound. So now all 9 of his UFC wins, all by finish. So he's the guy, he doesn't really go... If he goes to scorecard, it's not good news for him. But yeah, he's going to be ranked in middleweight now, a new division. Muniz was 14th, so Paul Craig should take that spot. He said in the post-fight, he's open to fighting both at 205 because he does have 2 wins against top 5 guys at 205 and still at 185. I mean, he looked good. He said he came in 27 pounds heavier on fight night than on weigh-in day, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. And
it's a good advantage to have.
Looking at the fight, you know, when you rewatch it through both rounds, I mean, this fight ended almost at the end of the second round.
Yeah, like the last minute. I mean, honestly, Muniz was getting some shots, and he was hitting them pretty good.
Right, and the takedowns.
Some good ground and pound. But what really fucked him, he was in position. Probably he won the first round, I think. He was probably winning the second round on top on the ground. And he had just a flagrant and dumb headbutt that made the refs stop the fight and put him back to their feet.
Right, yeah, I don't know if it was an intentional headbutt or what.
It looked pretty intentional.
It did, but it could have just been one of those things where
you're in the moment. Yeah.
Right, you'd think you're kind of, they push their heads up against him. I know it's not what he thought, but, in the moment you're like, oh, maybe I'm close enough, I'll just hit him in the chest.
But that was a huge turning point because they went up.
And Craig didn't seem very happy with them going up either. He likes being on his back.
With you in his guard. But as soon as they stood up, I mean, it wasn't too much longer where Craig took him down, and then from there the finish led. Almost got the Darce choke, ended up finishing him TKO with that, like you said, elbows, punches. But a nice win from Paul Craig. Really a good way to stop the losing streak, establish yourself as a ranked guy in a new division. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, it's exciting to see him be great across 2 divisions.
Such a likable guy, too. All right, so the next fight on the card was Jai, the Black Country Banger Herbert, versus Fares, the Smile Killer Ziam?
I think they said Ziam a bunch. I wasn't expecting that.
A very technical fight on the feet. Both guys hitting each other. A lot in the clinch. Ziam won the fight. All 3 judges gave him the fight. 2 judges, 29-28, 1 30-27. I had it 29-28, Ziam. I had him winning the first 2 rounds. Herbert kind of came alive a little bit more in the third round. But overall, pretty good fight. Very competitive fight. It was definitely a hard one to score. Like I said, both guys were exchanging. Both guys were hitting each other. But yeah, I had Ziam winning the fight. What do you think?
I agree there. Ziam, he definitely won the fight. It was more about, more significant strikes. He had a takedown, which,
In the second round.
right, in a less than, I don't want to say exciting, but in a less than like exhilarating fight, where they're not just standing up banging, you can't kind of tell where the judges are going to get it. In a round where you can get a takedown.
It was big because Herbert, too, was trying those first probably round and a half in the clinch, trying to get the takedown, and then couldn't get it, and then Ziam just kind of flipped it on him at one point and got the takedown, so it was nice for him.
Yeah. So getting back to the fight with both of them being like over 6 feet tall, that kind of makes you feel like it was going to be a length.
Yeah, two tall, lanky guys.
Yeah, and it, I guess both guys kind of trained for what the other thought they were going to do. Both guys thought it was going to be not an at-length fight. It's kind of a grapple fest. They both wrestled.
A lot of clinch fighting in this fight.
Yeah, which I'll see. I like any kind of fight any day. It was still good. Farah Ziam got the win here.
Solid performance from him.
Yeah, I agree. I think the judges got it right.
In England against an English fighter, so it was definitely a
biased crowd for sure.
Exactly. So overall, a solid win, solid fight.
Right. Lerone Murphy versus Josh Kulibau. Turned out to be a pretty exciting fight. It went to decision. You had a lot of strikes on either side. Total of 7 takedown attempts, which is pretty crazy. Most of those going to Lerone Murphy. He won the fight by decision, moved him to a perfect 13-0 on his career.
13-0-1.
13-0-1. I'm sorry, I always forget about the draw, or to even say the draw.
But honestly, a solid performance from Murphy. He got stronger as the fight went on. I had him winning the first 2 rounds 10-9, 10-9. I also had him winning the third round 10-9, but the judges 2 of the 3 judges had it 10-8 the last round. Judges were 30-26, 30-26, and 30-27 for Murphy. I had it 30-27 for Murphy. I thought it was a solid performance from him. And after the fight, he called out a top 15 opponent, which I think is right. Try to take that next step, try to establish yourself as a contender.
Yeah, 13-0. I mean, regardless, I think he's now 6-0-1 in the UFC.
Yeah, so it's time to make that next step.
Right. Even if it's premature a little bit, or not premature, but the guy you're trying to fight's a little premature. Regardless, top 15 opponent, I think he's due. I think give it to him. He showed that he can hang with somebody who's shown to be able to submit, knock out.
Yeah, it wasn't a crazy dominant win, but it was an obvious win for him where he controlled every round.
And look, not to say Josh Kulibau's on his way out. He came in 11-1. So he hasn't lost often. He only lost once by KO previous.
Yeah, I mean, he looked good early on. It was just as the fight went on, it seemed like Murphy kind of took control of the fight.
Yeah, I think the size advantage really helped out a good bit there. All right, now to cover last week's bets and picks. Pretty good week from 2/3 of us. I think that's kind of how the rhythm keeps rolling right now.
Yeah, every week it's 2 of us doing well, 1 of us not having the best night.
Man, Bucky really shit the bed here. He went 2-4. He's a dog, so I'll cut him some slack a couple more weeks. But goddamn, Bucky, you got to get that shit together.
Yeah, it's times like this you kind of got to blame the owner. He didn't raise him right, but that might not be Bucky's fault.
He is a very sassy dog, so I understand where he gets his bad takes from. But moving on for the bets, we both went 2-1. What'd you win on and lose on this week, Christian?
So my 3 bets. The first bet I had was the Leon Murphy Josh Kulibau fight. I had the over 2.5 rounds, which did go to the scorecards. So over 2.5 rounds. So I got that one right at minus 190.
I got that one. I actually had that as well as my bet. So
yeah, we had 2 of the 3 same bets.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I like how we don't talk about it, but on a smaller card, it's
hard. We pick 5 fights.
Yeah, exactly.
So my next one I got right. Paul Craig money line. This is my big upset pick according to the odds, plus 180. So it was nice to win that. And the one I lost, I had the over 2.5 rounds Molly McCann Stoliarenko fight.
Ugh.
I thought even if she lost, they would at least go to decision, but early first round finish. Unfortunate. We still love Molly, but that was my loss of the night. What about you?
So I also had Paul Craig money line. I've been a fan of his for a while. Watching him with the looking menacing, getting the blue paint going, it really
Such a likable guy.
And I just thought he was going to dominate, and
You saw who gave him the inspo for
it was Mike Perry. That's kind of crazy,
random,
right?
right?
Because I mean, not many brain cells left there to give many ideas out. It's crazy. So I had Paul Craig money line. I won that. Pretty much made me even for the whole night, which helped. I had the over on the Lerone Murphy. Sorry, like you said previous, and I actually had Giant Herbert money line, so I lost that one. Moved me to 2-1, and you 2-1 on the night. So for the current season, Christian, you are 10-5. So pretty solid. 10 wins, 5 losses. I like it.
Averaging two wins, 1 loss a night. I'll take that.
Yeah, that guarantees you're over. And I am 8-6-1. So I'm still positive. I'm about 67%, kind of right at the cusp of where you want to be. So we're gonna keep going from there. See where I can shake up. This week's kind of looking promising. We're going to be covering 9 fights. So, just having more to add to the scorecard is going to be good regardless. Moving on to the picks. We both went 4-2. Another good performance. I think we both got Molly McCann wrong. It's a fan favorite. It's hard to bet against our personal.
I think we got the other one wrong too. Herbert. I think we both had that as well.
Right, I had Herbert as my only other pick, so
me too.
That I got wrong. 4-2 on the week. That's good. Another 67% week. Christian, that moves you to 20-14 on the season. Once again, another solid. We're over 50% there, and that leaves me at 23-11. So I'm doing pretty good there. Bucky is at 7-8. So we're going to be looking at moving forward from there.
That looks like 8 and 9.
Oh, I'm sorry, 8 and 9. I can't read from here. My apologies. 8 and 9 for Bucky. Once again, with 9 fights for UFC 291, we're going to be looking to rebound for him and keep that fire going for me and Christian.
All right, so let's move on to our preview of UFC 291 for the BMF title, Poirier versus Gaethje 2. This fight card, since it's a big pay-per-view card with lots of great fights, we're gonna cover the prelims and the main card. So we're gonna cover a total of 9 fights. The first fight we're gonna take a look at though is Jake the Celtic Kid Matthews taking on UFC debutant Darius Flowers.
Nice. So, Jake Matthews lost, 2 out of his last 3 fights, his most recent by unanimous decision. He's going to be fighting Darius Flowers, who is making, like you said, his UFC debut. Let's see.
Darius,
go
ahead.
Oh, nice. So, I think here, Darius, he's making his UFC debut. He had a weird kind of showing so far. He knocked somebody out, or I guess got a weird tap, but it was a TKO. He slammed somebody, and they broke their shoulder, so they had to tap.
He gets a lot of finishes.
He does. He's got like you said, I think he has a few, or you were telling me before, he has a few early knockouts.
Yeah, his last fight, which I think was Contender Series, I believe, was the one you were referencing where he broke the guy's shoulder by slamming him.
Yeah, that was the Contender Series.
So that was 1:13 into the fight. His fight before that, before the UFC affiliation, 43-second finish. Before that, he finished a guy 45 seconds into the second round. So he's a guy that likes to get finishes. He's going to be looking for the finish, I'm assuming, in this fight.
Yeah, honestly, I still have Jake Matthews here. Short notices for me, I tend to just kind of go with the favorite, go with the guy who, he's not debuting. We've seen him before. We've seen him fight. We're familiar with Jake Matthews. We know he's lost 2 of his last 3. Hasn't won but 1 fight since 2020. But I think, with this camp he's just coming into with this fight, I think he's really going to show up. I think he's going to take the win here. I don't think it's going to be a great spectacular performance because he has to kind of pivot his whole narrative with a new fighter. But I think he's going to take the win.
I think I have Matthews too. What's crazy is both these guys are 28, and they just have such a vast there's a vast gap of experience. Matthews has been in the UFC since 2014. So quick math, that's 9 years ago, since he was 19 years old, about 19, 20 years old. He's 11-6 in the UFC, only 28, like I said, and he's taking on another 28-year-old. But I think the experience in the UFC is going to be the difference in that one. That's why I'm taking Jake Matthews as well.
And moving on to our next fight at middleweight, we have Roman Kopylov versus Claudio Ribeiro. So we have Roman Kopylov, 10-2, 9 KOs, 1 decision. So I think you can kind of tell what he's coming out here to do. And then you have Claudio Ribeiro, 11-3, 11 KOs. So based on those two facts, you can tell why the UFC made this match.
This is going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a good, exciting fight to get the crowd going early on.
Yeah.
Kopylov comes in. He's 1-2 in a row, but he's 2-2 in the UFC. So he came in undefeated, lost his first 2 UFC fights, kind of put his career in jeopardy. He's responded nice with 2 straight wins since then.
I will point out he did lose to Albert Duraev. That was his most recent loss.
No,
but since
his
then,
most recent loss, correct.
He's rebounded well
with 2 finishes since then.
Right. So maybe that kind of steered him in the right direction.
Ribeiro also came in. Well, he didn't come in undefeated, but he is 1-1 in the UFC. So he lost his first fight. He's responded nice in his last fight. Got a second round finish. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. I think it could go either way. Both guys are going to be looking for the knockout. I'm actually picking Ribeiro in this fight. I think he's a plus 195 when I checked underdog.
He is. That's
accurate.
accurate.
I think it's a close enough fight where with those odds, I'm not taking him as my bet, but I like Ribeiro winning the fight.
You see, I have Kopylov winning, but I completely agree with the thought process behind the why of your pick. That's actually the same kind of reason I go with the underdogs that I do go with. Toss up being, nobody really knows what's going to happen. We see plus 300 favorites winning all the time.
Yeah, this is fighting. You never know what's going to happen. All right, so the next fight on the card, this features a little bit of a theme of the night, a fan favorite fighter who's kind of fallen on recent times. This is the first one we're going to take a look at. We got Derek the Black Beast Lewis versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Lewis, one of my favorite fighters of all time. He comes in 3 straight losses. He's lost 4 out of 5. While De Lima comes in exact opposite. He's won 4 out of 5. So it's kind of 2 careers, 2 guys going in different directions. What do you think about this fight?
Man, I sometimes just hate watching my favorite fighters fight.
When they lose it and they start losing, it's tough to watch.
It's stressful because it's hard to not let your feelings get in the way here. It's
when you
hard.
actually care about the dude. As weird as it sounds, like we care about him. He's one of our favorite fighters. It's just like Molly McCann. It just sucks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Derek's trying to stop the slide here. I mean, like you said, 4 out of the last 5 he's lost. I mean, it's not the end, but he's got to do some major work to.
I mean, a loss right here, he might seriously need to consider this being the end.
It could definitely. One of the big things that I like to see here is, Derek Lewis coming out. Always comes out with confidence. Marcos Rogerio de Lima, he's a good fighter. Like you said, 4 out of his last fights he's won. But there's one thing with the heavyweights that, you can never forget. Everyone in heavyweight, one-hit power.
That's true.
One wrong move on either side, and the fight, for the entire fight, changes tides.
That's what Tom Aspinall was saying heading into his last fight last weekend. He was saying, listen, this is heavyweight. If you get touched clean, any of these guys can put you out. And that is very true, especially with Derek Lewis. He has insane power in this fight.
He does. Who do you have as your pick?
Saying that, and as much as I love Derek Lewis, I think, like I said earlier, it's 2 careers going in different directions. I have De Lima winning the fight.
Okay. I actually picked Derek Lewis. This is one I just couldn't jump off of picking him. I have a feeling here. I think he's going to finish. I think he's going to get the win. All right, another fight at welterweight. I think we have a bunch of those tonight. We have Trevin the Problem Giles versus Gabriel Maratina Bonfim. Gabriel Bonfim is the brother of Ishmael Bonfim. We saw him fight, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Pretty good. He's 14-0, 3 KOs, 11 submissions.
Yeah, all finishes. He's never had a fight go to the scorecard.
Isn't that crazy? Where Tevin Giles, 6 KOs, 5 submissions, 5 decisions, only losing 4 times, twice by KO, twice by submission. So it's kind of safe to say when Trevin Giles goes to the scorecard, he wins. And, quite often other times as well. Honestly, I think Gabriel Bonfin's going to be a big problem here. He wins most of his fights by submission, but he also has a powerful attack, powerful striking, which makes him very dangerous. It's the opposite where you see normally a very powerful wrestler not be able to strike, and they kind of rely very, very heavily on the jiu-jitsu or the submissions to pull it off. He does that, but he uses his striking to wear them down, to get them to the ground, and then submit them. So it's very interesting with his approach to it.
Yeah, it's another fight where there's a huge experience gap between the two guys. Trevin Giles has been in the UFC for a while. Bonfim, this is only his second fight. He is 1-0 in the UFC. Obviously, he's undefeated. So second fight, he had the Gilly finish in his first fight. I think less than a minute into the fight, which is crazy. What a way to start your career. Bonfim is a pretty big favorite on the Vegas odds. He's minus 315 compared to Giles, plus 260. I'm picking Bonfim in the fight. It's a little bit too not enough return for me to bet on him. But I think Bonfim, this is a nice step up in competition against a guy that's been there before with good experience. I think he takes a little bit of a next step, and he moves to 15-0.
Have you ever seen a Von Flue choke?
Yes, I have.
So Gabriel Bonfim is one of the only people in the UFC to pull it off. He was in the Contender Series when he did it, so not technically UFC affiliated, but just for like him to be able to pull off a rare choke like that and get a submission, I gotta side with you. I think Bonfim is gonna win. I got him as my pick as well. I don't think we're upset here.
All right, so the next fight is the first fight of the main card of the pay-per-view. It's Michael the Maverick Chiesa coming back from a long layoff. His last fight was November of 21, taking on one of the most exciting, most entertaining fighters in the UFC, Kevin Trailblazer Holland. Holland comes in. He won his last fight. Before that, he lost 2 in a row. So it was a nice bounce back for him. Chiesa lost his last 2 fights, both in 21. So it's been a little while, like I said. Chiesa does not have a finish since 2018. He's 16-6, 10 subs, 6 decisions. He does not have a knockout either, which is surprising.
So that's one of those things where kind of the opposite of Bonfim here, where I think Chiesa's reliance on wrestling and submitting is going to be his undoing. Honestly, I think Kevin Holland kind of takes the clash of styles where he has 14 KOs to Chiesa's 10 submissions.
He has crazy power too. He knocked out Jacare from his back. He was on his back on the ground and knocked out Jacare.
Right. So think of that. We saw a fight a couple weeks ago. It was a guy, I can't remember his name. It was a prelim fight. He was trying to get a heel hook, and the opponent reached over and just clobbered him. And he was like, "Look, you took the fight on short notice. You're a wrestler. This is what I do to you." And he knocked him out cold. I think that's what's going to happen here. I think Chiesa is coming back off his hiatus, after injuries, coming back. I know it's been a kind of trialed time for him, but I think Holland's going to be more fresh. I think he's ready. I got Kevin Holland as my pick.
Yeah, I think Kevin Holland, he knows his weakness is wrestling. I think he's been working on that. This is a nice fight for him where it's somebody that does wrestle, but it's an older guy older guy hasn't fought in a while, so maybe a good guy to kind of test your wrestling on. I'm with you, though. I think Kevin Holland, he's going to hit him a few times and I think he's going to knock Chiesa out. I have Kevin Holland as my winner in the fight. I also have him as my first bet. Kevin Holland money line at minus 145. I have Kevin Holland winning the fight.
Tony Ferguson takes on Bobby Green, and what's obviously, for anybody who's ever seen a fight before, is going to be interesting. I know you've looked it up, but what a lot of people don't realize is Tony Ferguson is on a 5-fight loss streak.
Yeah, his last one was in 2019.
That's pretty crazy. But he's faced absolute killers in that time. You know, Gaethje, Oliveira, Darush, Chandler, and Diaz.
Yeah, so he's faced killers, but I mean that's not. This was a guy I thought of at one point
As the best
in 2019. He maybe not best ever, but he was like best at 155. Comparing him to Khabib, they should have fought Khabib. And you know it's sad to see. This was the next fighter, just like Derek Lewis, is kind of taking a downturn where it's like kind of sucks to see.
Yeah, it kind of hurts to see a fighter you like kind of take that downturn. But, you know, the same for Bobby Green. You know, his last fight against Jared Gordon was a no contest. It was an accidental clash of heads. But the 2 fights before that, he lost to Drew Dober and Islam man, this is always hard to say. Makhachev.
We know Islam. You just gotta say Islam. Islam's not a bad loss. Drew Dober's not a bad loss. But yeah, he hasn't won in 3 fights.
He hasn't won since February of 2022. So
he is a guy. He's a crazy fighter. He has a crazy style. Both these guys kind of have crazy styles. Very unorthodox. He can win anyway. 10 KOs, 8 subs, 11 decision wins.
And look at Tony Ferguson. 12 KOs, 8 subs, 5 decisions. I mean, both guys have the full tool belt of MMA that they are going to use. Anything can truly happen in this fight.
A huge difference in odds in Vegas. I was surprised it was this big. Minus 410 the last I looked for Bobby Green. Plus 310 for Tony Ferguson. I thought it would be closer than that. Obviously, Vegas doesn't think Tony Ferguson has much left. So that'll be interesting to see. I have Bobby Green as my pick winning the fight. Obviously, with the minus 410 odds, it's not worth betting on. But I have Bobby Green winning. What about you?
Yeah, so this is actually my first bet of the night. It's funny, right after you say it's not worth betting on. But I agree. It's as a money line bet, it's not. You know, minus 430 and minus 310. You know, unless you're putting $10,000 to hope you don't lose that. Yeah, it's not smart. My bet here is actually the over on the fight. I think both guys are going to come out very decisive with their strikes. You know, they're both seasoned vets. They both know that the other has, you know, brutal just knockout power or submission power at any given time. While Bobby Green's still my pick, like I said, first bet, locked it in, over 2.5 rounds.
All right, so the next fight of the night, this is one of the fights I'm most looking forward to. It's kind of like the last fight we talked about between Ferguson and Green, where it's 2 unorthodox, unique styles. This is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Michelle what's his nickname? Demoledor Pereira.
Sorry, I like saying it with that accent. Demoledor.
Pereira comes in pretty hot. He's won 5 straight. Four of those, the last 4 decisions. Stephen Thompson comes in. He won his last fight against Kevin Holland. Before that, he lost 2 in a row. But before that, he was on a little bit of a roll. He does not get finished a lot. He's only been finished 1 time in his career. He has 6 career losses. Only one of them KO. It's 5 decisions. So he's a very durable guy. He has a unique style. Crazy head kicks. Very, very fun to watch. He's a very technical karate-style striker. It's just awesome to watch. And then he takes on Michelle Pereira, who you never know what this dude's going to do. He's going to do backflips, try to kick you, run up on the cage.
Now, to Pereira's defense, he has chilled out with a lot of that. He still does it.
He's chilled out in the fact that he's not reckless anymore. He just does it at the right times now.
Yes, which I can appreciate.
Keep your unique style, but try to win these fights.
Now, everything you said about Wonder Boy is 100% correct. I do have to add a couple things. One of them is a big glaring but. But he's 40 years old.
Yeah, but he's been fighting regularly. Like, he hasn't slowed down, so the age doesn't bother me at all.
My thing is, but he's 40 years old, so, you know, where does that leave him against somebody like Pereira, who's 29? You know, fresh. It's not to, you know, I never want to count Wonder Boy out, but that's obviously a question we have to think about when we're you know, deciding who to pick for this fight. That obviously with the
he's actually the Vegas favorite too, which was surprising to me.
I know.
Minus 150 Michelle Pereira, plus 130 I had.
I think Thompson's honestly just not just. I think he's the gatekeeper for the division. You know, if you want a shot above, for a title, you have to go through him. And
His only two losses, his last recent two losses, are against killers.
yeah,
Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns, two guys at the top of the division. So it's like, yeah, exactly what you said. He's like a top 5 gatekeeper.
yeah, and if he doesn't lose, then he can take another run at the title for sure.
I have Thompson winning the fight. He's my pick for the fight, and it's actually my second bet of the night. I have the over 2.5 rounds. So I think this fight goes to the scorecard. Thompson has been a decision machine late in his career. So I have my second bet of the night, over 2.5 rounds, and my pick for the fight is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
Nice. I picked Michelle Pereira for this fight, and it's also my second bet of the fight. Is Michelle Pereira money line. So if he can win by decision, I guess we will both win there.
All right, so moving on to the co-main event of the evening, Jan Blachowicz, Alex Potan Pereira, Alex Pereira first fight at 205, moving up from 185 after the 2 fights against Israel Adesanya. This dude is a killer, has hands of stone, hence his Portuguese nickname. Blachowicz, though, he's also a killer. Former light heavyweight champ. He's coming off of a draw. He fought for the title his last fight, a draw versus Ankalev. What do you think about this fight?
So moving up in weight classes is always very interesting. He had his scuffle with Adesanya a couple times in the UFC, and with Izzy getting the belt, it kind of.
Well, I think that weight cut was so hard for him too. He's huge.
He is a very big guy. So my biggest question here: how much stronger is he going to be? How much slower is he going to be? Or he could be faster if he was cutting that much weight. Being tired going into a fight, sucks. I don't think
the takedown is the big question.
I don't think he can. Even though he's going to be fighting at a more comfortable weight, Jan has been in that weight class forever. I mean, I know he bounces. He's not bounces. He's gone down.
Yeah, but honestly, I was looking at his recent. He's only has 1 loss in his last 8 fights. He's 6-1-1 with a draw, and 4 out of his last 5 fights have been for the belt. So he's been at the top for a little while now, which you got to respect. Pereira obviously had the belt for 1 fight at 185. He's a champion kickboxer. It's a battle of styles here. 2 different styles. Jan, he can strike, but his advantage in this fight is going to be trying to take Pereira down, I think, because Pereira does have the one punch knockout power.
Check this, though. Izzy just folded Pereira the last time out?
But I think a lot of that has to do with the weight cut.
So, taking that into consideration, how much more power does Jan have than Izzy at 205?
True, but if you don't have to drain yourself, that's 20 pounds you don't have to cut, which is a lot.
Yeah.
He can eat.
He may not have to cut nearly at all in comparison to where he was cutting for.
He can eat a lot more in camp. He's going to have a lot more energy. It'll be interesting to see. I think he wins the fight. I have Alex Pereira winning the fight. He's actually my pick, my second bet of the fight. I have Pereira money line.
Nice.
This is one that I'm kind of 50-50 on this fight, but I'm going to go out on a limb and take Alex Pereira because I like the odds. I got it at plus 100.
All right, so look, while you're on the 50-50 side, I honestly couldn't stop feeling the same way. Both guys beat Izzy before. It's a tough matchup. I picked Jan. He's my third bet of the night. Money line, Jan Blachowicz. I think he wins. I don't think it's any bad stain for Pereira. I think it's just an adjustment to the new weight class. So that's my final bet for the night. And so for the long-awaited main event, we have Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Justin the Highlight Gaethje.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Between the 2 guys.
We have, in my opinion, and I think in your opinion, one of the most exciting fights of the year.
It's the BMF title right here, baby.
Our favorite fighter, Dustin Poirier, fighting Justin Gaethje for the second time. He won the first time out. Both guys have been gatekeepers for the division. Both guys are well seasoned in the UFC, always fighting killers, always, dominating. And when they lose to a killer in their own right.
Yeah, each of their last losses are to Charles Oliveira and Khabib.
I mean, isn't that ridiculous?
So it's like, yeah, they beat everybody else but those two guys.
You had Poirier beating McGregor 2 out of the 3 fights they had, which is just crazy to even hear.
Yeah.
And Gaethje fighting who?
He fought Fiziev. His last fight dominated him. Michael Chandler dominated him. Lost to Khabib. He pretty much changed Tony Ferguson. After that fight, Tony Ferguson was a different person.
Losing, quite a bit in a row. I think we said previously in the pod.
That was the one that started it too.
Right.
So both these guys are killers. Both these guys, I think honestly, you have the 2 top guys in the division are Islam, Charles Oliveira. These guys are right there with them, Poirier and Gaethje. I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think it's going to be a very entertaining fight, very fun to watch. I can't go against Dustin Poirier. So he's my pick for the night. In my last bet of the night, so I got the over 2.5 rounds. This is a 5-round fight.
Wow, you got split right down the middle.
I got over 2.5 rounds. I don't think this fight goes to the scorecard, but I think it's going to be a Dustin Poirier 4th or 5th round finish. So I got DP. I got the diamond winning, and I think this puts him right up there. You got to start talking about another title shot.
Right. They both have spoken recently that they're getting up in age, and that
a loss for either one of these guys might be it.
Correct. I know this is a not world title for anybody, but this is a BMF title. It doesn't spell the title that any one of them wants, but definitely I think with a loss here,
it gets some pay-per-view points, which is money. So I think they both appreciate it.
Absolutely. I like you can't not go with Dustin. I gotta go with our number 1 fighter, our fan favorite, Dustin Poirier. I don't have any money on this one because I want to watch this one with, just my eyes, not my pockets. I get too nervous with those, kind of too close to my heart. But I agree with you there. Dustin Poirier for the finish. I think he defeats Justin Gaethje and moves on for his next title shot.
All right, so let's move on to our favorite reoccurring segment, our top 5s. The past couple of weeks, we've done kind of theme top 5s. Last week was top Brits. So sticking with the theme of themes.
I like themes of themes.
Themes of themes.
So what's the theme that we're going with? Is it fight related, area related, what?
So this one, it has to do with the fight card. Since we're looking at the BMF title, the baddest motherfucker title, Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier. In honor of that, we're going to do the top 5 BMFs. So our top 5 baddest motherfuckers. Now, I think we sent the text out, we didn't talk, and we picked our top 5. So I think we both had different interpretations, but I think that's perfectly fine.
Dude, I blindly agreed to this, and you just had me stressed out for like 2 whole days of me scouring the internet trying to figure out, 1, not to have a duplicate list of yours because I just don't know what you were going to put, and 2, just trying to fill the list. It was fun.
We did a good job of that because I took it as top 5 BMF MMA fighters, UFC fighters. You took it in general, which I like. I wish I would have thought of yours more. But we have our top 5s. We'll go from here. So let's kick it off. What's your number 5, Alex? Top 5 BMFs.
My top 5, my number 5, I should say, BMF is Mike Tyson.
Ooh, Mike Tyson.
So
one of the scariest boxers of all time, most intimidating boxers.
Right, and if you Google baddest man on the planet, there's like 1,000 articles that come up that just say Mike Tyson. So that earned a lot. I mean, there was a documentary called The Baddest Man on the Planet, so that helped. But, with Mike Tyson, he proved that he bit a man's ear off on national TV.
Bit an ear off, had 1 punch power, told a guy he was going to eat his kids.
Yeah, just
told another guy he was just going to straight up fuck him.
Right.
He's a bad motherfucker, and he's a scary motherfucker. He still is, and he's like 60 years old.
Right. So that's my number 5. Who you got for your number 5?
I like your number 5 a lot. But like I said, I took the top 5 BMFs more of a MMA UFC fighter. So my number 5 is going to be the old school fighter, Don Fry.
He's about to come back, apparently.
This dude talking about he wants to fight Francis Ngannou, despite the fact that he's 60 years old. He's one of the original UFC fighters, early 90s fighters. He had a iconic fight. I don't even know who he fought against, but it was literally him and a guy grabbing each other by the shoulder and just exchanging punches. It's one of the most iconic MMA highlights of all time. He has some crazy, crazy sound clips recently calling fighters nowadays pussies, pretty much targeting Israel Adesanya, maybe a little racism, I don't know. But top 5 BMF, my number 5, Don Fry.
So that's that fight was Don Fry versus Yoshihiro Takayama.
Yeah, I think it was a pride fight, actually.
It was.
Japan.
It was a pride fight. It was.
But still, just like
Crazy fight.
if you haven't seen that, go watch that because that is one of the most insane highlights you'll ever see.
So do I have my number 4 now?
I think your number 4 is up next.
All right. So my number 4, going back with my different interpretation of the list, I've got Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bean Bryant. My reason here, Kobe Bryant with the Mamba mentality, always outworking everybody. Basketball is just the one thing he chose to excel at. He was the kind of individual that whatever he decided to do, he was going to be the best at. He was just also naturally gifted to be like 7 feet tall, so it kind of helped steering
more
him
like
towards basketball.
6'6", 6'7", but I get your point. But yeah, one of the best basketball players
Over
of all
a foot
time.
taller than me. That's tall enough.
One of the best basketball players of all time. Has one of the best mentalities and mental fortitude of all time.
Also, rest in peace, Kobe.
Rest in peace, Kobe. Yeah, I like your pick. I like your number 4. My number 4, I put the literal current BMF title holder. I put Jorge Masvidal, game bred. Like I said, he won the BMF title against Nate Diaz. He started in the streets, literally fighting in the streets with Kimbo Slice on YouTube. I don't think you can get more bad motherfucker than that. He's about as real as it gets. Punched Colby Covington in the face outside of a steakhouse, so you gotta like that. But yeah, my number 4, Jorge Masvidal.
I like that number 4. With Masvidal, that's who the title was really made for, or
it was him versus Nate Diaz.
Right, and Nate, is just the old school badass. Kind of fight anywhere, anytime, and Jorge truthfully would fight anywhere, anytime. He fought on the streets, like you said. With Kimbo Slice, he fought in backyards before it mattered. So, I totally agree there. I can't argue, really at all.
All right, so who you got as your number 3 BMF?
My number 3 BMF, non-fighter, right? Going with my current theme is going to be Michael Jordan.
2 basketball players in a row.
Right. So
you don't strike me as an NBA fan.
And that's kind of why I put them. Michael Jordan and Kobe both, household names. Even non-basketball fans, know these guys. You could include, others as well, but these 2 are the ones for me, are just the baddest guys that played the game of basketball.
An ultimate winner.
Yeah, I mean,
He also played baseball too, which is impressive.
Right, and kind of look at Bo Jackson in that sense. They all
Sanders
translated into a different sport, and that's so rare. Just with the fact of how often anybody goes to a major sport as it is.
Yeah, 2 pro sports is insane.
So
3 pros at 2 sports.
My number 3 being Michael Jordan. Couldn't have Kobe above him. Michael Jordan's the GOAT. Forever.
Well, my number 3, sticking with my fighter theme, BMF. My number 3 is one of my favorite fighters, Max Blessed Holloway. This dude puts on some entertaining fights. He's another guy. He'll fight pretty much anybody. Puts on entertaining fights. He dominates most of them, except if he's fighting Alexander Volkanovski, apparently. put on a war with Dustin Poirier that he lost a few years ago, but it was a great fight, not a bad showing from him. He beats up. He's one of those guys. Even Volk said it, like, stop beating up my prospects, because he's fighting these guys on their way up, and he's just ruining their title chances because he's dominating them so much. He's a cool dude. He's a funny guy. He seems laid back. He seems like a good guy. So Max Holloway, on number 3, BMF.
I like Max Holloway. He's a great fighter. Even, what is he now, 38? 37, 38?
No, dude, he's like 29, 30.
Jesus, he's been fighting for forever.
He came in the UFC when he was like 20. That's
crazy. It just, everybody's, we've been watching for so long, it feels like everybody's almost 40 now. But it's good to know that Max has a good, 10, 11 years left in the tank based on what he's been doing in the UFC. I really like that pick. It in my opinion, it doesn't really compare to my number 2.
Well, I haven't given you my number 2. Why would my number 3 compare to your number 2?
Well, because of who it is. I say my number 2 before you say your number 2. That's kind of why. Your number 2 also can't compare to my number 2. I don't care who your number 2 is. My number 2 is David Goggins.
He is a bad motherfucker. I don't know how he's not your number 1 if you had him on the list.
You'll see. So David Goggins is just...
I'm the David Goggins guy. You don't even like him.
Yeah, but you put me on to him. No,
that was a joke.
Yeah.
He's for everybody.
It's how are you going to gatekeep David Goggins, you bastard? No, David Goggins is great. Just sometimes when I'm cutting the grass, in my head, if I'm getting tired, I'm like, who's going to carry the boat, though? And, it makes me go those extra steps. It's really motivational. Calling yourself a bitch has never been more motivating.
It's so healthy, I feel like.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I'm a big David Goggins fan, so listen to both of his books. Big fan, so I can't hate on that. I don't know how he's not your number 1 if you're going to include him on the list.
You'll see. I told you. You'll see. Who's your number 2?
My number 2, probably the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter right now, Alexander Volkanovski. I mean, this guy is not afraid. He moved up, fought the guy nobody wants to fight, Islam. Arguably won the fight. He lost on scorecard, but could have gone his way. Dominates his division. He dominated the last time. Beat him 3 times. My number 3 guy, Max Holloway. Volk right now looks almost untouchable, especially at 145 in the UFC. He's an awesome dude. He's funny. He's just a bad motherfucker.
I really can't disagree there. I mean,
I love what he did to Brian Ortega too.
Yeah, and I mean, what he's done in the UFC kind of speaks for itself. Did he move up to the pound for pound number 1?
I don't know if he officially did. A lot of people have him pound for pound number 1.
Right, so either way, it's either him or John Jones pound for pound number 1.
Islam is up there too.
Oh yeah, Islam could be number 1 as well. But anyway, top 3 pound for pound. I mean, just a brutal fighter. When he takes damage, he takes it clean. He fights with respect.
We've never really seen him like crazy hurt.
I don't think he's ever been crazy hurt. I mean, I know he's lost, but just to say in scope of the post haircut Volk,
yeah, since
he's been unbeatable.
Championship run. But yeah, Volk my number 2. So who's your number 1 BMF?
That'll be Theodore Roosevelt.
Old Teddy.
Old Teddy. Listen, I was looking up people.
He is a badass.
Who could be the baddest on the planet? And when I stumbled across Teddy, one of the things that really solidified it for me was the assassination attempt. You were aware of that story, right?
Yeah, he got shot before a speech, still went up, did the speech, and then in the speech was like, and I have a piece of lead in me, and they all laughed, but he was like, I'm not joking.
Right. He said, I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot. That was the opening to his his speech. That was the opening to the speech. So
that'll get people to listen, huh?
That was exactly how he tried to convey the emotion of what he was trying to speak to the crowd. So if you can't tell me that's not badass, I don't know what is.
I mean, he started the national parks. He was an outdoors guy.
But wait.
I love Teddy Roosevelt.
He went on to say, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose.
Yeah.
Right?
One of the most... He has some crazy quotes, too.
That's crazy. So, the manuscript of his speech was bullet-ridden. He was shot. He said, the bullet is in me, so I cannot take long. but I will do my best. He made his speech, was then rushed to the hospital.
He's a great president.
Survived. Great president. Father of the national parks. A great helper to Native Americans and giving them their land back. In my opinion, the most badass American, the most badass person.
He's probably still regarded as like universally top 5 president of all time.
I mean, if only we could have something like, if only we could have something like that back right now.
Yeah, like somebody like him, like
Right.
a leader like that. Agreed.
Who's your number one?
My number one. So I took bad literally for this one. Bad
Oh.
motherfucker.
I like it.
So I have my number one is the greatest UFC MMA fighter of all time, John Jones. Untouchable. He became the youngest champ ever. I think he was 23. He's pretty much been champ ever since. He has something like 15 plus title fights, which is just insane. He hasn't legitimately lost in years, ever. He
You're right.
also has a crazy rap sheet where he's getting arrested, snorting coke, cheating on his wife, hitting his wife. So he's literally the worst motherfucker. But he's also the baddest motherfucker, one of the best fighters of all time. Not one of them. He is the best fighter of all time. Without a doubt, has the best resume of all time. My number one, John Jones. John Jones would smoke Teddy Roosevelt in a fight.
Yeah, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose, is all I have to say. I like John Jones. I like that as your number one in your category of badass people. I really can't argue with that. Once again, in the categories of what you're saying, he's not a great person, but he is a badass dude. Pound for pound, top 4, top 3.
You don't have to be a BMF. You don't have to be a good person to be BMF.
Oh, you're right. I like how we both interpreted the questions completely different. You can kind of see where the headspaces were when we were looking things up and thinking about where we wanted to go with this. I like the baddest motherfucker list. Grab your paddle, buddy, because we're going on the canoes. So you were telling me about John Jones earlier as being your top 5 baddest mofo. That's
number
like
one baddest motherfucker.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, your number one baddest motherfucker. So that kind of leads me right into the canoes for the week. Colby Covington wants to headline UFC 295 with him. And if
Who?
with John Jones.
He wants to fight John Jones?
No, headline with him. So be on the card, be the co-main to his main event. So
Gotcha.
he plans, if he can get this, he plans on asking John Jones the tough questions, such as, what is a picogram? Kind of obviously alluding to John Jones's problems with USADA. When he tested positive, what was it, like 25 picograms of whatever PED substance?
Yes, something like that.
I mean, it doesn't say there's none. But anyway, he'd also like to ask a couple others, like, who were the 2 girls in the back of the Bentley when you wrecked it in Vegas? Now, this is an old story. This is like from 2012 when he wrecked it. But kind of like you said, Jones has had a bit of a rap sheet over the past. And then lastly, he would like to know what was in the bag when you hit the pregnant lady at the stoplight and then fled the scene.
I mean, these are all true accusations, but Colby Covington would never say that to John Jones' face.
No, but it doesn't matter. He said it on a microphone in front of enough people to have gotten my attention. Obviously, Covington just being his normal character. I'm the better guy. He's a piece of shit in his own right, but I like the exciting week in the news for it.
Yeah, so I got a news story. Did you hear about the big boxing fight this weekend?
Remind me, which one
So
was that?
Terrence Bud Crawford, Earl Spence Jr., they've been 2 of the best pound-for-pound boxers current day, both guys in their prime. They've been talking for years about getting this fight done. It looked like it was a typical boxing thing where the big fight never gets done and they never actually fight.
Sounds like it.
Just like Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk. Never going to happen, looks like. But this fight is actually happening. Both guys undefeated. This is the biggest boxing fight in a while, I think. 2 guys, like I said, in their prime. 2 of the best of the generation. It's actually at the same time as UFC 291. But last time this happened, they literally waited for the UFC event to end before the main event in boxing started. Hopefully they do that again this week so we can watch both. But big time boxing match this weekend.
I like that they're cognizant with it. You know, they're not just they're trying to maximize viewership. So
There's
they're
no
like,
point to be dumb. You know, a lot of your fans overlap. So
yeah, I mean, we got a lot of boxing fans, you know, watching UFC, and vice versa. You got a lot of UFC fans that want to watch the boxing match.
and I'm not the biggest boxing fan, but watching two like high level guys like this is always fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. I definitely wouldn't watch local boxing, but you know, world championship level boxing, it's definitely worth the watch. My last news story for the week is kind of what I think a lot of people's dreams have been. Would be, you know, I talked a little bit about this last week with Patty looking like he's going to start taking the UFC more seriously or his career more seriously. He may be taking the next step. You know, he was talking about wanting to coach the Ultimate Fighter against Taporia and then fight him after. That would involve, you know, the next 8 to 12 months of his life being wrapped up in that. You know, and if that's not showing his, or at least excuse to kind of keep himself dedicated or motivated to it, you know, I'd be willing to watch that. You know, I know the McGregor Chandler Ultimate Fighter pumped up viewers in its own right, but I like a younger take on it. What do you think?
I agree, but I don't think Patty is at the level right now of Taporia. I know they have a little beef going, but since Patty got injured and by the time he's gotten back, Taporia has proved himself to be one of the top guys in his division. Patty, he's not there yet. He could still get there at one point, but I think he needs a couple more fights before he fights Taporia. Because I think if they fought right now, as much as I like Patty, I don't think it would go well for him.
Yeah,
But I'm not opposed to that happening in the future after a couple fights for him.
yeah. I mean, you got to look with that kind of thing being you know, if they have to film a whole Ultimate Fighter season, that kind of fight would be 8 months to a year out. So Patty and Taporia could both fight again soon, and then, you know, kind of lock themselves into that. The other thing is, or with that, I should say, Patty finished up his comments with saying that Taporia could barely beat retiring or a soon-to-retire Josh Emmett.
And then
So,
Josh Emmett kind of said
I'll fight
he
you.
would fight Patty too.
But
So Patty's got options. He's got a lot of people that want to fight him because he's a big name that they think they can beat. So
Right. So it's exciting. We should definitely see Patty, you know, coming back to the main event, or not main event, sorry, the UFC soon. We don't know where it's going to be, but, you know, his name's always being dropped. Let's be on the lookout. And to close out this week's episode, we're going to bring back the Who Would Wins again. As you did with the top fives, I kind of thought to do the same things with the Who Would Wins in a sense, or at least one of the Who Would Wins.
in what sense?
Theme.
Okay.
How'd you say it before?
Our theme of themes.
Yeah, I like the theme of themes.
It's like the King of Kings, like Jesus.
So I broke two parts up. One is location oriented, and the other
Send me location.
is a badass person fight, and then the other is just a different fight. So number one, the bride from Kill Bill, not Kill Phil, the bride from Kill Bill versus Ellen Ripley from Alien. So two badass women, both killers, quite literally, except one was killing aliens, you know, in outer space.
One was killing just a shit ton of people.
Yeah. So what do you think? I'll let you kind of pick the playground here.
I'm thinking the bride because have you seen Kill Bill?
Yep.
When she got buried alive and she's able to dig herself out,
That's some ruthless shit right there, dude.
she cuts people in half with her sword. She's just like on a mission. Now the girl from Alien, no disrespect to her, she is too. She's fighting fucking aliens. But I think the sheer numbers and the way she does it and the revenge factor and the determination, I think I got to go with the bride from Kill Bill.
Okay. I like that. I'd be interested to see what everybody else thinks, or what anybody else thinks about the bride versus Ripley. I kind of think it would go the same way, but I'm always wrong, and I'll be wrong again. moving on to our next one. This one has no theme behind it. I just saw it or thought of it, and I was like, oh, this will be fun. I'm going to give you a conquest battle. Napoleon versus Alexander the Great.
So is it Napoleon's army versus Alexander the Great's army?
Right. Now, to make it fair, because I know they come from, completely two different time periods, meet them in the middle for, as far as like technology. Advance one, dumb one down, or do whatever you got to do.
Why don't we say they have the same clone army?
Okay.
With the same weapons, and it's just them being generals?
Yeah. What about who has better war tactics to win with the same army?
I really like both historical figures. I know Alexander the Great conquered more land, but his was in a time where there were less countries and nations that were like united together to fight against. So I think I got to go with Napoleon because he took over pretty much most of Europe when it was like established countries. He fought more traditional warfare, I feel like, too. So I think he would probably outmaneuver Alexander the Great, although Napoleon was beat at Waterloo, which is his great failure, which was from strategy. So that might be a weak point. But Alexander, his army revolted against him because he was pushing him so hard. So you got to think of that, too. I still think I'm going with Napoleon, though.
It's a great, concise argument. I like it. And lastly, we're going back to the theme of themes. We're not going badass here. We're going location.
So, Utah, Salt Lake City?
Utah. So, one of these fighters is the most famous person from Utah. And
is it a fighter or is it a famous person from Utah?
I'm saying the saying fighter is in the who would win. So, one of the two people in this fight, is from Utah. Roseanne Barr.
She's from Utah?
She's from Utah.
I like Roseanne Barr. She's a little controversial, but I respect her.
Versus Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, so it's like right wing versus left wing fat white comedian woman?
Right.
I think I'm going
strong
Roseanne Barr.
White comedian is what they would prefer to be called.
I personally like Roseanne Barr more than Rosie O'Donnell.
You're a bad person, apparently.
So I think Roseanne seems a little more gritty than Rosie. Rosie feels like she would complain a lot. Roseanne...
I think if you give Roseanne an Ambien, she just wins. Just
she's
cuff.
like...
it's like a superhero.
She's like one of those fighters where they just keep taking punches and like you just can't knock them out.
Punch drunk?
Yeah, and you just can't stop.
Yeah. You remember the fight with Sean O'Malley and the green-haired guy?
Yeah, Chris Moutinho.
Yeah, that.
The only time we ever saw him in the UFC, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of the...
Give her an Ambien and you can't put her out.
I'm just going out on a limb and saying Rosie O'Donnell doesn't have the best stamina, so I think Roseanne outlasts her. Roseanne with the TKO in like the 4th round.
Nice. All right.
Thank you for listening to Split Decision. Check us out next week when we recap UFC 291 and take a look ahead to UFC Nashville.
The inventor of the Frisbee was turned into a Frisbee per his last wishes upon death. Like and subscribe to this episode of Split Decision, and check us out at splitdecision.blog, where you'll find our most recent posts, videos, and all the links to our socials.
Today, we discuss Miro. Listen, when it comes to running client workshops, the dream, of course, is to get those creative juices flowing, right? But typically what ends up happening is thousands of hours get wasted because of poorly facilitated meetings. So I have Maya with me today. She's a consultant who runs Fortune 100 workshops, from leadership training to team building, and she has the insider tip on what makes things work. Maya?
Thank you, Jason. I've been doing this a long time. My number one tip is to bring everyone into that visual collaboration platform. So personally, I use Miro, and it's completely changed how I interact with the room. You have to give people a way to feel like they're in the room even when they're not. That's something you can do easily in Miro. Otherwise, they've seen the same slides and format 1,000 times.
Falling asleep, eyes glazing over, yawns, all that.
Exactly. When people follow me on the Miro board, everyone is literally going on a journey with me. We're adding thoughts, we're reacting, and we're voting for the best ideas. It's great.
Connective magic. I like it. That's MIRO.com.